Do audiobooks count as reading? If you're a reader or an author who exists in the online bookish community, then chances are you have stumbled across this conversation at some point. Today, I'm going to prove once and for all that audiobooks do in fact count as reading. But before I get to that, hey, my name is Frank. Welcome to my channel where I talk about all things bookish. So before we can even really get into this discussion, we need to define what reading is. At the heart of this discourse, we'll find that the reason people even disagree is because we're all coming at this with different understandings and definitions of reading. People who don't believe that audiobooks are considered reading is because the value they place on reading is strictly from the physical act itself, as opposed to placing the value on the skill of interacting with text, which can be done in different ways. If you see here, the Cambridge Dictionary defines reading as the skill or activity of getting information from books. It says nothing about how one goes about getting that information. If reading was strictly about using your eyes, then we would say that we read a movie or we read a TV show. The difference is the source, not the method. Now, if this isn't enough to convince you, then may I please turn your attention to this lovely woman who has been kind enough to share a couple other definitions of reading from the Oxford English Dictionary. I've linked her video below in the description if you want to go check it out in its entirety, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to include the clips in which she's actually sharing some of the definitions of the word read.
There are 14 transitive definitions of the word read with multiple subusages, and 9 intransitive uses of the word read, definitions of the word read with multiple usages. Okay, now I'm going to insert photographs in here so you don't think I'm just making this text up. Okay, so on page 260, definition 5I, to receive and understand the words of a person by radio or telephone, to hear, to detect an object by sonar. Now the thing with the OED is that it also provides usage dates. So the earliest it was ever used in writing, the term in writing to mean that, and then every time it changed a little bit. And there's a big chunk. There's a book about it, there's a movie about it, which is a terrible adaptation of the book. Anyway, so that's 5I. I'm also going to read you 10A. To see or find a statement in a written or otherwise recorded form. To learn by perusal of a book or other document. A recording is a document. Look up the word document. Okay. And then I'm going to turn the page on page 262 is 15E. To receive and understand a message by radio, telephone, etc.
So now we've seen that there are multiple definitions of the word read or reading. Now, if you choose to say that audiobooks don't count as reading for your personal reading journey, that is absolutely fine. But you cannot make the definitive statement that they don't count as reading in general because you would be wrong, according to the Cambridge and Oxford English dictionaries. Now, I could just end the video here and be done with it, but I'm not going to do that because I have a theory as to why so many people cling to the idea that audiobooks do not count as reading. The one is what we just discussed. They're operating from a limited framework and understanding of the word. The second is that I've seen a lot of people try and make the point that audiobooks are an inferior experience, and therefore that's why they don't count. So let's dive into why someone might think that. But before I do, if you're enjoying this video so far, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Maybe even hit that subscribe button if you're looking for more bookish content. So if you've never heard the words Hyperphantasia or Aphantasia, which in English I believe is pronounced Hyperphantasia, Aphantasia, yeah, it is the neurological process of being able to picture things in your mind or not. So this is hyperphantasia. I'm going to leave this up on the screen while I talk about it. So hyperphantasia is the condition in which someone is able to picture something in their mind almost perfectly with absolute clarity, almost as if whatever they were picturing was right in front of them. And now, if you want to read along, these are some of the traits that you can just like read that for yourself. Now, for aphantasia, which I'm sure you can guess, is the complete inability to picture anything in your mind at all. If you try to picture something, you will not be able to see anything, or it's just going to come up blank, black, nothingness. And then these are some of the traits of that condition, if you want to just look at those really quick. Now, most of us fall somewhere in the middle of this spectrum. We might not be able to picture something with absolute clarity or like picture perfect. There's a more of a ghost of an image in our minds when we try to visually recall or follow along in a story that we're reading, right? There are also people who have an internal monologue. And this is when you can hear your own voice inside of your own mind, or maybe even hear somebody else's voice. And this is kind of what that would look like or sound like, right? Now, some people do not have this inner voice or inner monologue, and that condition is referred to as, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, but anaduralia, anaduralia. Yep, no. Now, there was a study in 2021 that suggests that there may actually be some correlation between people who have this anaduralia and aphantasia. If you want to check that out. And of course, I'm going to be linking all the websites below if you want to go check out these sources for yourself. Now, here's my theory. People that lean more towards the aphantasia side of the spectrum or the anaduralia side of the spectrum are the people who often enjoy more scanning their eyes on the actual text, whether that be a physical book or an ebook, instead of using their ears to process the text. And this is why I believe that they might feel that audiobooks are an inferior experience. Now, obviously, this isn't going to be true for everyone. There may be some people who can picture things pretty vividly in their minds or do have that inner monologue and still prefer ebooks or physical books. But this conversation is not about your preference or your personal relationship to reading. This is about declaring in a definitive statement that audiobooks do not count as reading. Now, your experience is not everyone else's experience. You do not get to decide for everyone what something means. Reading is the skill or act of obtaining information through text. How you obtain that information is irrelevant. I really hope that this video has helped maybe expand your personal understanding of reading. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.